Imagine you are standing on a gorgeous beach in San Diego. The sun is shining and wealthy tourists are drinking iced lattes 50 yards away. It looks like a postcard for a perfect life. But you are currently doing push-ups in wet sand while a man who has clearly never smiled in his life screams into a megaphone. He is holding a cup of hot coffee and looks genuinely disappointed that you are still breathing. This is Coronado, California. It is the birthplace of the Navy SEALs, and it is the exact location where your pride goes to die every year. Hundreds of elite athletes arrive here with dreams of becoming cinematic heroes. They have watched all the movies. They have read all the books. They think they are ready to jump out of airplanes and look cool in night vision goggles. Statistically, 80% of them will leave this beach in a regular civilian minivan within a few weeks. That is a historic attrition rate explicitly designed to filter out anyone who possesses a normal, functioning survival instinct. The Navy does not want people who look good on a poster. They want people who can look at a completely miserable situation and decide that misery is a solid career choice. The entire process is an exercise in systemic human disassembly. They take your civilian ego, your athletic achievements, and your dry clothes, and they throw them into the Pacific Ocean. You will quickly learn that the human body is remarkably resilient, and that sand can migrate into places you did not know existed. The journey begins long before you ever touch the water. It starts in a recruiting office, where a nice man in a crisp uniform shows you a brochure featuring explosions and high-tech gear. He tells you that you have what it takes. He promises you adventure, brotherhood, and the chance to jump out of helicopters. What he leaves out of the brochure is the fact that you will spend the first several months of your journey being treated like a sentient piece of wet laundry. You pass the physical screening test, which feels difficult at the time, but you later realize was just a polite warm-up. You ship out to boot camp, learn how to fold your underwear into perfect squares, and finally arrive at the Naval Special Warfare Center. The air smells like saltwater diesel exhaust, and the collective anxiety of 120-somethings who are about to regret their life choices. The initial phase is called orientation, which is the polite military term for letting you realize how weak you actually are. The instructors introduce you to the grinder. The grinder is a massive black asphalt courtyard with green footsteps painted on it. Those footsteps represent the ghosts of the thousands of candidates who came before you and realized they preferred a career in accounting. You spend hours on this asphalt, performing calisthenics until your arms feel like overcooked spaghetti. The instructors move among you like apex predators, looking for any sign of weakness. If you blink too much, you are weak. If you breathe too loudly, you are weak. If you look at the ocean with a longing expression, they will immediately make you go stand in it. This brings us to the core concept of BUD/S training, which is the condition known as wet and sandy. The instructors do not like clean clothes. They do not like dry skin. At any given moment, for no articulate reason, an instructor will yell the words, "Hit the surf." This means you must run into the freezing Pacific Ocean until you are completely submerged. Then you must run back up the beach and roll around in the dry sand until every square inch of your body is coated. You are now a human sugar cookie. The sand acts like sandpaper inside your uniform as you run, walk, and exist. It gets into your eyes, your ears, your teeth, and your soul. You will live in this state for weeks, proving that the pinnacle of modern, multi-billion-dollar military warfare can still be completely defeated by a large quantity of dirt. The daily schedule is an absolute masterpiece of physical exhaustion. You wake up at an hour that should only exist on a clock if you are coming home from a bad party. You run to the galley to eat breakfast, but you cannot just walk inside like a civilized human being. You must perform a series of pull-ups on a red bar outside the door just to earn the right to consume scrambled eggs. If you fail to hit the required number, you go back to the tail end of the line. By the time you actually get to eat, you have burned more calories than you are about to consume. You wolf down 5,000 calories of food like a starving raccoon in a dumpster. You eat so fast, you barely taste it. which is probably for the best given the quality of military cooking. Then you run back to the grinder to start the actual day. The physical conditioning phase is a slow, methodical grinding down of your muscular system. You run miles upon miles on the soft sand, which burns your calves and destroys your ankles. You tackle the famous obstacle course, which looks like a playground designed by someone who genuinely hates children. You climb 40-foot ropes with hands that are raw from salt water. You vault over high wooden walls while your uniform is heavy with moisture. Every single evolution is timed. If you fail to meet the time standard, you are rewarded with extra physical suffering. The instructors do not get angry. They get creative. They will make you hold a heavy rubber boat over your head for an hour while they discuss their favorite weekend barbecue recipes. But all of this physical conditioning is merely a prelude to the main event. It is the horizontal milestone that stands between you and the rest of your life. It is called Hell Week. Hell Week consists of 5.5 days of continuous physical evolution on a grand total of about 4 hours of sleep. But this happens to be the exact amount of sleep required to start having a deep, emotional conversation with an inanimate trash can. It begins on a Sunday evening with an event known as the breakout. You are sitting in a dark room, trying to mentally prepare yourself for the upcoming days. Suddenly, the doors are kicked open. The room fills with heavy smoke, flashing lights, and the deafening roar of simulated machine gun fire. Instructors are screaming, whistles are blowing, and M80 explosives are detonating in trash cans right outside your window. It feels like the end of the world, but it is actually just Sunday night. You were dragged out to the grinder in the pitch blackness and immediately ordered into the surf. The water is freezing, the air is cold, and the reality hits you like a physical blow. You will not sleep again until Friday afternoon. The first 24 hours are a blur of continuous running, paddling, and shivering. You were assigned to a boat crew of 6 or 7 men. Together, you must carry a waterlogged 200-pound rubber inflatable boat on your heads wherever you go. The weight of the boat compresses your spine and creates a permanent bald spot on the top of your head. You run for miles with this rubber monster tearing at your scalp, wondering why you didn't just listen to your mother and go to law school. By Tuesday, the sleep deprivation begins to alter your neurological chemistry. Your brain desperately tries to shut down, but your legs keep moving because the man next to you is still moving. You find yourself marching into the Tijuana mudflats at midnight. The mudflats are a vast wasteland of freezing, foul-smelling slime that comes up to your waist. The instructors order you to sit in the mud. The cold is so intense that your jaw locks and you cannot stop your teeth from chattering. The sound of 80 men shivering in unison sounds like a field full of angry crickets. To make things more interesting, the instructors set up a warm tent nearby. They bring out a microphone and describe the texture of the hot coffee and fresh glazed donuts they are currently enjoying. They tell you that all you have to do to enjoy a hot donut is quit. The exit strategy is incredibly simple. There is a brass bell hanging in the center of the courtyard. If you want to quit, all you have to do is walk up to that bell and ring it 3 times. It is a system explicitly engineered by the US military to be slightly easier than trying to cancel an Adobe subscription. Once you ring that bell, the suffering stops instantly. You get a hot shower, you get a clean, dry bed. You get a pizza. The bell sits there throughout Hell Week, a gleaming monument to comfort and defeat. Every time someone rings it, the instructors make everyone else do extra push-ups to thank their former classmate for his service. You watch guys you thought were absolute monsters walk up to that bell, drop their helmets on the ground, and ring it with tears in their eyes. You realize that physical strength means absolutely nothing out here. The biggest guy in your class will quit because his mind cannot handle the cold, while some skinny kid who looks like a high school chess champion will keep moving because he is too stubborn to stop. By Wednesday, the hallucinations become your new best friends. The human mind is not designed to function without sleep while submerged in freezing water. You look down at the surf and you do not see waves anymore. You see a giant. glowing neon sign pointing toward a McDonald's drive-thru. You look at your boat crew partner and you are convinced he is actually a giant, talking breakfast pastry. You have an intense, whispered argument with him about whether or not he should be covered in blueberry frosting. He does not find it funny because he is currently hallucinating that the instructor is his childhood dog. You keep paddling your rubber boat into the dark ocean, completely detached from reality, surviving entirely on adrenaline and sheer, unadulterated spite. Thursday brings the physical breakdown of your actual structural integrity. Your feet have been wet for 4 days straight inside leather boots. The skin on your soles begins to peel away in large, painful layers. Your knees are swollen to the size of grapefruits from crawling through the gravel. Your groin is raw and bleeding from the constant friction of wet, sandy utility trousers. Every single step feels like you are walking on broken glass that has been dipped in hot sauce. But you cannot stop to look at your injuries. If you stop to check your feet, the instructor will assume you are looking for a place to sit down, and he will immediately introduce you to a new friend named the Fire Hose. Friday finally arrives, though you have long since lost the ability to track the passage of linear time. The instructors gather the remaining survivors on the beach for one final evolution. They make you crawl through the sand one last time, screaming that you will never make it. And then, with absolutely no dramatic music or Hollywood fanfare, the commanding officer walks out and tells you that Hell Week is over. The silence that falls over the beach is deafening. You do not celebrate. You do not jump up and down. You are too tired to even smile. You are led back to the barracks where medical staff immediately check you for pneumonia and staph infections. You fall into a cot and sleep for 18 hours straight, waking up with the sudden, terrifying realization that you are still only in the first phase of training. Once your body heals and you learn how to walk like a human being again, the Navy rewards you by throwing you into the deep end. Literally. Welcome to Phase 2, the diving phase. This is where the big, muscular guys who survived Hell Week realize that large muscles require a massive amount of oxygen. In the pool, extra muscle is just a heavy anchor that wants to drag you to the bottom. The first major hurdle is an exercise known as drown-proofing. The instructors take a length of rope and tie your hands firmly behind your back. Then they take another piece of rope and tie your feet together at the ankles. Then they pick you up and drop you into the deep end of a 9-foot swimming pool. The goal is remarkably simple. Do not die for the next 30 minutes. You must bob up and down, sinking to the bottom, pushing off the concrete with your bound feet, rising to the surface to snatch a single breath of air, and then sinking back down. You must float on your back without using your hands. You must travel to the far end of the pool by performing a strange, dolphin-like undulation of your entire spine. If you panic, your heart rate spikes, your oxygen levels plummet, and you begin to swallow water. The instructors are standing poolside with long poles, watching you drown with the calm detachment of a person watching paint dry. They will not help you until you completely lose consciousness, because a candidate who panics underwater is a liability to the entire team. If you survive drown-proofing, you are allowed to move on to the actual scuba training. This culminates in an evolution known as pool comp, short for pool competency. It is widely considered the most psychologically brutal test in the entire pipeline outside of Hell Week. You are wearing a twin-tank diving rig and breathing through a regulator at the bottom of a 15-foot pool. You are completely fine minding your own business when suddenly the water around you explodes. 2 instructors dive down and attack you like highly trained, aggressive SEALs. They do not like you. They do not like your equipment. They rip your face mask off your head so you are blind in the chlorinated water. They rip the breathing regulator out of your mouth and throw it behind your back. They pull your air hoses over your head and tie them into multiple, complex knots that would make a Boy Scout proud. They turn off your oxygen tanks using the valves on your back. You are now 15 feet underwater, completely blind, unable to breathe, with your life support equipment tied into a knot behind your head. The primal lizard brain inside your skull screams at you to blast to the surface to get a breath of air. If you surface, you fail the test, you fail the phase, and you are immediately dropped from the program. You must sit calmly on the bottom of the pool, overriding millions of years of human evolution that tell you to breathe. You must feel around your back with your fingers, locate the knot, systematically untie it. Trace the hose to the regulator, clear the water out of your mouth, and turn your own oxygen back on. All of this must be done while an instructor is actively kicking you in the ribs and pulling your fins off. It requires a level of emotional regulation that most adults cannot achieve when their Wi-Fi goes down for 5 minutes. You must learn to treat panic like an annoying telemarketer. You know it is there, you hear it ringing, but you simply choose to ignore it and keep working on the problem. If you can pass pool comp, you have proven that you can maintain your composure, while the universe is actively trying to suffocate you. The Navy finally decides you are trustworthy enough to handle firearms, which brings you to Phase 3, Land Warfare. Phase 3 takes place on San Clemente Island, a barren, windswept rock off the coast of California that is entirely populated by lizards, foxes, and angry military instructors. This phase is where you transition from a professional swimmer into a professional commando. But before they give you the cool weapons, they introduce you to an old friend, Log PT. Log PT is exactly like a corporate team building exercise. Except instead of a poorly worded email from human resources, a lack of communication results in immediate spinal compression and a trip to the medical tent. Your class is divided into crews of 6 men, and each crew is given a massive waterlogged telegraph pole that weighs about 150 pounds. You must perform synchronized military exercises with this log. You must press it over your head. You must run with it on your shoulders. You must do sit-ups while holding the log across your chest. If one man in your crew decides to slack off and only give 80% effort, the log immediately tilts. The remaining 5 men instantly feel the extra weight crushing their collarbones. It is the ultimate detector of human selfishness. You cannot fake your way through Log PT. Your teammates will notice within 3 seconds if you are not pushing, and they will make your life a living hell during the next beach run. You learn to move as a single, multi-headed organism that shares a collective hatred for forestry products. Eventually, the explosives come out. You learn how to handle live demolition, calculate blast radiuses, and shoot thousands of rounds of ammunition from various weapon systems. You spend weeks running through the brush practicing small unit tactics, breaching doors, and clearing rooms. You are constantly dirty, constantly tired, and your ears are permanently ringing from the sound of gunfire. You learn how to navigate across a trackless desert at midnight using nothing but a compass and the stars, carrying a backpack that weighs more than a standard piece of checked luggage at the airport. You are pushed to the point where tactical movement becomes a subconscious reflex. You can drop into a perfect prone firing position before your conscious brain even realizes that someone simulated an ambush. After what feels like an entire lifetime of misery, the final day of Bud/S arrives. You stand on the grinder in your dress uniform, looking at the tiny handful of men who managed to survive alongside you. Out of a class that started with nearly 200 hopeful athletes, perhaps 30 or 40 remain. You are awarded the Navy SEAL Trident, a gold pin that features an eagle grasping a flintlock pistol, an anchor, and a trident. It is one of the most respected military decorations in the world. You pin it directly into your uniform chest. You look in the mirror. You think you are an absolute god of warfare. You think the hard part is over and that you are about to live out a high-budget action movie. Then you arrive at your official SEAL team, and you realize you are a new guy all over again. The veteran operators in your platoon do not care that you survived BUD/S. To them, graduating BUD/S simply means you have proven you are not a quitter, which is the absolute bare minimum requirement to speak to them. They look at your clean gear and your unscarred face, and they tell you to go make coffee. You enter a new pipeline called SEAL Qualification Training, where you spend another several months learning advanced tactics, free-fall parachuting, and combat medicine. You jump out of airplanes at 20,000 feet in the pitch blackness, falling through the sky like a rock until you deploy. Your canopy and glide silently onto a drop zone. You spend winters in Alaska, learning how to survive in sub-zero temperatures, where touching a metal rifle with bare skin will instantly rip your flesh off. Once you are finally certified as an operational SEAL, you get deployed to the other side of the world. This is where the massive gap between Hollywood cinema and military reality becomes a canyon. The movies imply that a Navy SEAL spends 24 hours a day doing backflips out of stealth helicopters, shooting bad guys while dual-wielding pistols and walking away from explosions in slow motion. The actual reality of a deployment is 99% grinding boredom and 1% pure adrenaline. Your daily life consists of sitting in a dusty, reinforced compound in a country you cannot pronounce, waiting for intelligence reports to update. You spend hours organizing your gear, checking the batteries in your night vision goggles, and cleaning sand out of your rifle for the 400th time. You will also quickly discover that the modern United States military runs entirely on administrative paperwork. You will fill out more Excel spreadsheets than a mid-level accountant at a suburban insurance firm. You must document every single piece of government-issued equipment in your possession. You must fill out risk assessment forms before you can even think about leaving the base. You must write detailed post-mission reports that detail exactly how many rounds of ammunition were expended, how much fuel was consumed, and precisely how many pairs of government-issued socks were lost in the mud. If you lose a piece of specialized gear, the paperwork required to replace it is more grueling than pool comp. You find yourself staring at a computer screen at 2 in the morning, wondering why nobody ever filmed a movie about a commando, trying to fix a formatting error in a Microsoft Word document. When a mission actually happens, it does not start with a dramatic, inspirational speech from a general. It starts with you sitting in the back of a military transport aircraft or a rigid hull inflatable boat for 8 hours in complete darkness. The air is thick with the smell of diesel fumes, aviation fuel, and hydraulic fluid. The ride is violently bumpy, slamming your spine into a hard metal seat while you carry 80 pounds of tactical equipment on your torso. You are sweating profusely inside your body armor, trying your absolute best not to vomit into your own night vision mounts. You sit there in the dark, staring at the green glow of your teammates' gear, wondering if this is the night your luck finally runs out. You insert into the target area miles away from the objective to maintain the element of surprise. This means your mission begins with a 6-hour hike through terrain that would make a mountain goat consider a different career path. You climb up loose gravel ridges, tear through thorny brush, and wade through freezing rivers with your weapons held high. Every muscle in your body is screaming from the weight of your pack, but you must move in absolute silence. You cannot speak. You cannot use a flashlight. You communicate entirely through silent hand signals that look like a highly aggressive version of charades. If you trip over a rock and make a loud noise, 5 of your closest friends will turn around and glare at you with enough intensity to melt steel. You finally arrive at the target location, a remote compound hidden deep in the mountains. Your platoon sets up a secure perimeter, moving with the fluid precision of a Swiss watch. The actual tactical breach takes less than 3 minutes. Doors are blown off their hinges. Rooms are cleared with surgical accuracy. And the objective is secured before the occupants even realize they are no longer alone. There are no dramatic fistfights on top of moving trains. There are no witty one-liners delivered to the villain. It is fast, violent, efficient, and completely professional. And then you must turn around and hike 6 hours back to the extraction point, carrying the exact same heavy gear, plus whatever intelligence materials you manage to gather. You get back to the base as the sun is coming up. Your knees are ruined. Your back feels like it was run over by a tractor, and your face is covered in a mixture of camouflage paint sweat and desert dust. You strip off your heavy armor, take a sip of lukewarm water, and immediately open your laptop to start filling out the deployment log spreadsheets. This is the cycle of your life for 6 to 9 months at a time. You push your body to the absolute structural limits of human endurance, risking everything for a few moments of high-stakes execution, all while surviving on a diet of energy drinks, protein bars, and institutional cynicism. Which ultimately brings us to the final existential question of this entire lifestyle. What kind of human brain looks at this trajectory and decides that this is a great way to spend their 20s? What type of psychological profile voluntarily signs up to be frozen, drowned, crushed by logs, and buried in paperwork? It takes a very specific, highly functional brand of mental malfunction to excel in this world. It requires the ability to completely compartmentalize physical pain and turn yourself into a machine that thrives on discomfort. You have to be the type of person who looks at a freezing, stormy ocean at midnight and feels a strange sense of comfort because you know everyone else on Earth is currently inside a warm bed. But the funniest part of this entire journey isn't what happens while you are in the Navy SEAL teams. The funniest part is what happens when you finally decide to leave. You survived the most brutal military selection pipeline on the face of the planet. You deploy to global combat zones and survive explosions, firefights, and freezing oceans. And then you retire at the ripe old age of 32 to do the most terrifying thing of all: enter civilian life. You quickly realize that corporate office culture is far more confusing than any tactical ambush on San Clemente Island. That you do not know how to interact with people who get deeply traumatized by a passive-aggressive email from a supervisor. You do not know how to sit in a cubicle for 8 hours without looking for an emergency exit or an improvised weapon. So you do what every single retired Navy SEAL is legally obligated to do by federal law. You start a podcast. You set up a high-quality microphone in a dimly lit garage. You launch a premium line of tactical coffee that features a large, aggressive skull on the front of the bag. You write a New York Times best-selling self-help book explaining how. Waking up at 4 in the morning to stare at a blank wall will instantly fix your marriage and maximize your corporate productivity. You become an internet guru of extreme accountability, telling ordinary suburban dads that the reason they aren't rich is because they haven't done enough push-ups in the surf. The circle of life is officially complete. You went from a freezing sugar cookie on a beach in San Diego to a digital marketing specialist selling tactical lifestyle merchandise to people who work in human resources. So what about you? Are you the type of person who would walk up to that brass bell during the first hour of the Tijuana mudflats? Or are you currently calculating how many bags of Skull-branded coffee you can sell to the internet? Let me know down in the comments.